So there's this really cool passage in Galatians where Paul declares, "For freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery." And this morning's text for me was a great reminder that it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. And the passage we're sitting with as a devotional is Mark 23, where Jesus and his followers demonstrate and exhibit some freedom from a tradition or a religious practice that ruffled some feathers. So this is on the Sabbath. And one Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And he said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need of food? He entered the house of God, and when Abiathar was high priest, and ate the bread of the presence, which it is not lawful for any but the priests to eat, and he gave some to his companions. Then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for humankind, and not humankind for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." And so I think what we see here is this is one example of the ways that we as sort of sinful, broken humans, we take something that is meant to be a blessing from God, and we take that gift that is meant to be a blessing, leading us toward freedom. And what do? We instead take it and we start using it in a way that is it's no longer a gift, but it becomes a burden. And so there's this tendency that we have to take gifts of blessing that lead us toward freedom, and we take those and instead we twist them, and then they become burdens that lead us toward captivity. And I think that was what happened here with the Sabbath. There was this sort of commandment, this gift of blessing to receive rest on a weekly basis. And over time, it turned into this burden where the sort of rest that God invited his people to experience, it turned into actually kind of like more work, and it turned into a burden of captivity, in the sense of, if someone was hungry, they weren't even allowed to pick grain, because that would constitute working, and so therefore they, and so I think it's just helpful for me, at least, to take time to sit with this and acknowledge that this is a pattern that I continue. This is a pattern that I think you continue, that we all continue, where we take gifts of blessing that are meant to go lead us toward freedom. We take them, we twist them, and they become instead burdens that lead toward captivity. As an example, let's start at the beginning, right? In the Garden of Eden, there's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And what does God say to Adam and Eve? He says, look, you can eat from all of this abundance, all the sort of fruit, all the provision you could ever desire. And I am here in community with you. There's this sort of unfiltered presence with me and you in creation, and everything's great and wonderful. There's also this tree over here. Don't eat from that one, but everything else is all good. And so there's a gift. And of course, the gift isn't necessarily, in this moment, the gift isn't necessarily all the provision. The gift here is what? The gift is a choice. The gift that God offers Adam and Eve here is the choice. They can choose whether or not. And what does choice create the foundation for? Of course, the choice creates the foundation for love. And so here, by giving them the choice, giving them the opportunity to choose either obedience and unfiltered communion with God, he gives them the choice to choose differently. And of course, what do? They take that opportunity for love and the blessing, the freedom that God offers them, all of a sudden gets twisted and turned into a burden that leads toward captivity. And of course, we see that the freedom moves toward enslavement, and maybe the sort of best way that that's represented is where they felt shame, and what do? They cover themselves, right? So the freedom that they had experienced with their nakedness, with their vulnerability with God, all of a sudden they don't feel that sort of sense of invitation of freedom, and they cover themselves in shame. And this, of course, is a pattern that, I mean, let's just look at the good old seven deadly sins, right? We're blessed with the image of God in us, and yet when we take that and we twist it into this kind of self-worship, we have pride. We receive the blessings from God of the basic things we need for life, and yet when we take the blessings of God and then we start comparing them with the blessings that God has blessed our neighbor with, then all of a sudden we can take blessings of freedom and move toward captivity of envy. God has blessed us with a heart for justice, as those who want to make right a world that is wrong. And yet when we twist that and turn that into vengeance and violence, that we will sort of, then we have wrath. There's provision of God just providing what we need. When we take more than what we need, right, that's gluttony. And of course, provision and then taking more than what we need at the cost of others, well, that's greed. And then, of course, there's rest. We talked about, that God invites us into. And when we take rest and we just sort of move away from like a healthy expression of rest toward just detachment from life, there's sloth. Our sexuality, which is a blessing, but when it's moved towards self-centeredness or objectivity toward the other, then that's lust. And so I think it's, for me, there's this good reminder this morning that I have a tendency, we all have a tendency, and it gets back to the very beginning of the human story. We all have a tendency to take blessings of God that are meant to lead us toward freedom. And we take those blessings, and what do? We twist them and we turn them into a burden that leads us toward captivity. So may you receive more and more blessing from God today. May you keep it as a blessing. May you keep that blessing a blessing. May you guard it. May you maintain it. May you notice our tendency to take blessing and turn it into burden. And may you live into the freedom that Christ offers you, knowing that it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. So may it be so for you and for me and for us all. Amen.